where we talk about the growing concerns growing over religious freedom and rising violence and drawing international attention across three major regions. In China, Reuters reports that authorities have intensified a nationwide crackdown on unregistered Christian churches, including the recent arrest of the pastor from one of the country's most influential underground congregations. Beijing says it is enforcing regulations on online preaching and foreign religious influence, but rights group warn this marks one of the harshest campaigns against Christians in years. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, a wave of deadly attacks continues to hit Christian communities. According to recent coverage by the Associated Press and Time magazine, gunmen have targeted churches, villages, and even Catholic schools, where more than 300 students and staff were abducted. Security analysts say a volatile mix of armed groups, extremist factions, and widespread criminal kidnappings is leaving Christian populations increasingly vulnerable. And coming back to Sudan, the civil war between rival military factions has placed Christian minorities in the crossfire. Human rights organizations report churches bombed, clergy killed, and civilians threatened or forced to flee as both sides battle for control. Some attacks appear religiously motivated, while others are part of the broader chaos engulfing the country. In November 2025, Chinese authorities arrested 18 leaders of the Zion Church, one of China's largest unregistered Protestant house churches, including its prominent pastor, Jean Ezra Mingri. They were charged with illegally using information networks, a crime that carries up to 3 years in prison. The arrest came after new government rules that ban unauthorized online preaching and restrict what officials call foreign religious influence. Zion Church, which has around 5,000 core members in 50 cities and expanded its reach through online sermons during COVID, is now facing what analysts describe as the toughest crackdown on independent churches since 2018. The effort is part of the CCP's wider Sinicization campaign to force religious and the religions to align with socialist party-approved values. Human rights group report intensified surveillance, including over 40,000 cameras installed near religious sites, as well as the use of legal and financial charges to shut down or detain pastors. Authorities are now pressuring unregistered churches to join state-run religious bodies and imposing stricter controls on foreign missionaries. In response, Christian communities in 45 countries have called for the release of Pastor Jean and the other detained Zion Church leaders. Earlier this week, Senator Marco Rubio sharply criticized the RSF for its role in the Al-Fasir massacre, raising the possibility of broader shift in U.S. policy toward the conflict in Sudan. Have a look.
And we're very concerned. As you know, we've been sponsoring this Quad initiative along with Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. And I think the fundamental problem we have is that the RSF agrees to things and then never follows through with it. So now what you have is a calamity on your hands. And so I had meetings on this yesterday. We've discussed it multiple times with multiple countries today. And I think something needs to be done to cut off the weapons and the support that the RSF is getting as they continue with their advances. I think it's telling, the humanitarian groups are telling us that some of the levels of malnutrition and suffering that they're seeing from some of these people who have been able to flee is unprecedented. They've recorded things they've never recorded before. And I think even more troubling is that they didn't have the number of refugees they expected to receive, because they assume many of them are either dead or so sick and malnourished they can't move anymore. So what's happening there is horrifying. We have worked, I think, all the way back to July and August on this Quad because there are countries involved in helping these elements on the ground fighting. And we share many of the same concerns that others do about how that could turn into a nest for for jihadist and terrorist activity, but the solution to it is not to fight a war where civilians literally are being targeted for rape, sexual violence, and murder. And that's what's happening.
But the UAE,
What's your assessment on the UAE's role in this
supplying
conflict?
them with drones, Chinese drones.
Yeah, so we're working hard at it. We know who the parties are that are involved. These things, that's why they're part of the Quad, along with other countries involved. And so I can just tell you at the highest levels of our government that case is being made and that pressure is being applied to the relevant parties. I don't want to get into calling anybody out in a press conference today because what we want is a good outcome here. This needs to stop. I mean, they're clearly receiving assistance from outside that's allowing them. And clearly that assistance isn't just coming from some country that's paying for it. It's also coming from countries that are allowing their territory to be used to ship it and transport it. So that, in order for this to be solved, that needs to be addressed. I don't know if you saw the RSF a few days ago agreed to humanitarian ceasefire, but they don't intend to comply with it. And when you raise the issue of these atrocities, they always hide behind the argument that this is rogue elements. Well, it's not rogue elements. They're doing it systematically, and it's something that we have taken very seriously and are doing everything we can to bring the relevant countries to the table to stop it. It needs to end.
Would you support the Senate push, bipartisan Senate push, to label the RSF either a foreign terrorist organization or STGG?
Yeah, I mean, if it would be helpful in bringing this to an end, we would. I haven't seen that proposal. I know some senators discussed it with me months ago, but in the end, we just want this. This needs to stop. And I think, unfortunately, what's happening here is the RSF has concluded that they're winning, and they want to keep going. And by going, they're not just fighting a war, which war alone is bad enough. They're committing acts of sexual violence and atrocities, just horrifying atrocities against women, children, innocent civilians, of the most horrific kind. And it needs to end immediately. And we're going to do everything we can to bring it to an end, and we've encouraged partner nations to join us in this fight. And we're not going to let the Quad process that we've set up be a shield that people hide behind and say, well, we're involved with the Quad, we're trying to solve it. We need actionable results, and they need to happen very quickly. Otherwise, what's already a travesty is going to get far worse.
Can I ask you more specifically about your assessment of the scale of the atrocities? I mean, we heard these reports recently of 460 patients in a hospital, civilians being killed by the RSF.
Yeah, those are the ones that can get out.
Yeah, I mean, what do you have an assessment of the scale overall of what's been committed in Al-Qaeda?
Well, I don't know about numbers. I can tell you that the one thing that I think was most shocking to us is that they anticipated receiving thousands of refugees, and they didn't. So obviously these aren't people that are happy living there after a year of siege against the city. There's a reason why they didn't come out. And we fear that the reason why they didn't come out is because they're dead, or because they're so sick and so famished that they can't move. So I think it's even worse. Not that refugee flows and crisis is a positive thing, but when the refugees don't come, and they would otherwise, have these suspicions that they're either dead or unable or about to die, and that is just what really is weighing on us right now.
The arrest of Zion Church leaders mark a significant escalation in China's long-running campaign to control religious expression. By combining legal charges, digital censorship, surveillance, and pressure to join state-supervised institutions, the government is moving to eliminate independent Christian activity outside party oversight. The crackdown on Zion Church, one of the country's most prominent underground congregations, sends a clear message that unregistered faith communities will face increasing restrictions. As global Christian groups call for the release of Pastor Jin and others, the situation has become a defining test of China's approach to religious freedom and its willingness to tolerate beliefs that operate beyond the state's ideological boundaries.